this might have just been the middle school, had a whole bunch of stuff a few years ago. Do they still?
I thought you did.
So I think they have the school split.
Hey, I met with Mudd today. Came in and
Yeah,
met.
no. I don't think it was run by the PTO.
So he was like,
It was.
We good?
I wanted to meet with you about
When the main office
possibility.
when you walk.
Good evening, everybody. If I could call the meeting to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. If I could get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. If I could, I'll do a moment of silence for Diana Lenhart, food service worker for 19 years, and Tim Edmond, school bus driver for transportation, who had worked for the district since 2017. Okay, thank you. We've got a couple members that need to take their oath of office. Can't get out of it now. We'll go, who do you want first, Pearl? Allison.
Yeah, I know, but like once in a while, it's more cold.
Okay, Lori. To both of you.
A year less than me. We're about the same time because I took a leave for a year and a half.
Okay, I will make a motion that to move into a public hearing for district-wide school safety plan for 2024-25 portion of the board meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Calabufo, who will then... Oh, Mrs. Ladd. Thanks.
I'm back. I have, 2 months off the whole year that I don't have to make a presentation? I just put together a little one, we've seen it before, just to kind of formalize the fact that we have to have an open public hearing regarding the district safety plan. There are actually 5 pieces to this. These are all in the board packet for tonight for your approval and the action items. The first one is the document called School District Safety Plan. This is a comprehensive multi-hazard school safety plan that covers all the buildings in the district. It was developed by the district-wide safety committee many years ago, and which included different members, and it changes year by year, but representatives of all the different stakeholder groups. It came into existence in 2000. It was done under the SAVE legislation back in the day to prevent and minimize the effects of violent incidents and emergencies and coordinate schools and school districts with our local authorities, EMS, ambulance, fire, police. Basically, the requirements are kind of broken down between district-wide safety plans and building level plans. The district-wide safety plan includes the code of conduct, the public emergency employment plan, the response protocols, and there's actually a new one added a couple months ago that is the workplace violence plan. The building level plans are their basic plans of what they're doing during various events. This district-wide plan has to be adopted at a public hearing. That's why we're doing this tonight. It's available ahead of time. Pearl puts the ad in the paper that there's an open public hearing for it. And then we post it to the district's website. None of this information is confidential. All of the building level information is confidential. We have 30 days by, I think it's October 1st, to get the building level plans submitted into the portal. They basically are done by the principals of the buildings. They put together their building-specific teams, decide who's doing what in the event of any type of emergency, and we file it into the portal with the state of New York. Everything is basically on the website except for building level pieces of it. It addresses anything and everything from emergency responses to management at the building level of what we're going to do in an emergency, how we will respond, who's corresponding with who's going to communicate. And again, in the buildings, it's also represented by the various district safety stakeholders. They have to be amended by September 1st of each year. The district safety committee meets about 4 times a year, and if there is any amendments that need to be done, it's reviewed through the district level safety committee. Changes come up through the building level committees to the district safety committee. It's posted and does not contain confidential information. There was some new amendments that just came out effective this July 31st, so what, 4 days ago, 5 days ago. None of these are really anything that's in the district-wide plan, because the district-wide plan is broad, not specific to incidents or any specific items, but it's introducing pretty much everything that's in here we already have. Trauma and trauma-informed are the terms that are being introduced, and so the big part of it is during the drills, they must be announced and informed so that no trauma is experienced by any of the students in the buildings.
So let me jump- can I just jump into that for a second?
Parents will be notified now ahead of time when there's going to be a lockdown.
So that excludes fire drills for
Correct.
obvious reasons. So we don't do it during fire drills because the state recognizes that that would be putting a whole bunch of students and staff in harm's way, because to let somebody know when we're going to have fire drills would be basically letting them know where there's hundreds of students in certain spots outside that would be obvious targets. For the other part, for the one that you have to give, we always did in our district, that goes back several years ago when we had board members legitimately bring up concerns saying that, look, if my daughter locked herself in a bathroom and heard that that it wasn't a drill, that it, basically what looks like an active shooter situation, that they were going to text them, and we would have parents converging on the school, even though you tell them not to do that, because of all those things that they've seen in social media and whatnot, where bad things have happened, especially in other states. So the only drill that we will do, and what we're going to do is, I'd like to have it more than just the morning of. I had already, we're going to put something out again. I believe we did. We're doing it again to our administrators, letting them know, and we talked about this during our admin retreat this past week, where we said there's going to be at least 24 hours before. If you do it where you give it like a week's notice, well, for some parents, they could forget. I want you to remind them the day before. So for the majority of our buildings, it's going to be the day before, the morning. So it's not going to be like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday that this is going to happen Wednesday, because some of our parents, they don't subscribe to the text messages. They just get the email alerts. But we want to be able to give them enough time that they see this, because we do have a lot of students that have experienced significant trauma, and we want to be able to give parents the opportunity to have conversations with their kids. You're going to be having this drill tomorrow and whatnot. So that is the only one that we let parents know in advance. We do not do that blasting it out for fire drills, as I said, for obvious safety reasons.
And also included in this, those full-scale exercises that districts have done throughout the years. We've done them ourselves. Even the DWI training one, they're now considered trauma-inducing. So if any students they cannot happen during the school day anymore, and if any students are going to be a part of it, they must have actual written permission from their parents. Threat assessment teams do exist, and we do already include them in our plans. The floor maps and area maps, we have them in our plans. The early dismissal drills, we end up doing every year because we always have a leave early because of snow. And bus drivers and monitors, they are on our teams, but we'll make a better effort to make sure they're on our teams every year, because that's not always the case. District safety meets like at 4 o'clock quarterly, and that's just not a great time to get bus drivers or monitors on. The transportation director has always been a part of it. Also, part of the safety plan is the code of conduct. This is not new. It's also in there for your approval. It basically is a maintenance of order on school property plan. It includes all the school functions after school, and it does include anything that happens on buses. It's again reviewed annually, available on the district website. In there, any changes that have been made in these documents are highlighted in yellow. In the code of conduct, there's an added page or an added section about AI because that's becoming a big thing these days. And there's a little change on the dress code. Everything else is just updates from other years to the new things that had happened. Last year, and maybe the year before, we were required to do a public employer emergency plan, obviously due to the COVID incident. This basically covers, it happened in 2000, and covers any operations in the event of a declared public health emergency, including up to communicable diseases. Again, must identify everything that we're going to do, be posted on the district website. Right now, part of this 30-day plan, or what am I saying, public hearing. The pandemic planning piece came into effect in 21. The safety plans now have to include this piece, and it is in there for your approval. And it's not new, it's been here for 2 years now, or 3. And I don't believe there's any changes to that one this year. The workplace violence prevention program is new this year. It went into effect in September of 23, and it became effective January of this year. It covers public employers now, including public school districts. Basically, everything in this plan is currently being done by school districts in other areas, so they never used to include us in this legislation that technically isn't new, but it's new for school districts. Dave Maestri basically took the lead on this with Tom and put together the plan. We did the workplace risk evaluation. We're providing the annual training. It will be part of our system, our training every year. And basically, the process inside it, we have added into, I shouldn't have turned that, we've added it into the district safety committee. Because if anybody is injured and it happens to be due to a violence incident, it's still going to be reported on the same document, brought to the same committee, assessed by us, and then whatever action needs to be followed will be taken there. So all of these documents are tonight here for your approval. And does anybody have any questions?
It's important to know, so, because people have asked about it in the past, the one thing she referenced about the dress code change, do you remember when we had a situation where you had like the Central Square trap team? So it was the Red Hawk with the rifle, that's their logo. So now they are allowed to wear that. So what we put in there was built upon what the policy that Erie 1 had was, like glorifying, guns and whatnot. Now, if it is affiliated with an actual, recognized team that we recognize, and that is one of them. We also have a rifle team, so if they were to wear T-shirts, they would be allowed to do so, and it's not violating the code of conduct. So that's the one reference that she made.
Yeah. It's on, the school dress code is in the code of conduct, is item number 4. We just added clothing or hats that are affiliated with either the district rifle team or the Central Square Club trap team are permitted. We try to be broad. All right, it's a public hearing, so public is allowed to speak. If you have any questions. No? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Can I get a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
All motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Now can I get a motion to open the regular meeting?
All motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And then, Pearl, we don't have any blue cards? No? I don't think we have much of a public here. We'll move on to item D, special presentations to the board. Aaron, that's you.
My wife has the pink one.
Is Sophia excited to go to school?
2 weeks.
I know, soon. I harass her at the ice cream parlor all the time when I see her there.
She was ready.
Hello, everyone. I brought some friends with me tonight. So we are going to do our end-of-year data presentation. And the reason I have these guys behind me is because really the only building that I can confidently speak to is Millard Hawk, because that's where I was from the end of January through the end of the school year. So if there are questions about certain buildings, these 3 people can answer them for their respective buildings, and myself for Millard Hawk. So we're going to get started. So this is the format I'm using this year because this is what we've done. Next year I am going to switch it up. I haven't really decided how, but I got to think of something new. So this is where our kindergarten team left off, and you've got middle of the year to end of the year data there. You guys know what these, we have new people. So I'm going to do a quick run through for our new student board member and then our new board member. So I'm going to go up there, though, so I'll take this with me. Okay, so this is middle of the year, this is end of the year. The red are the kids that are significantly below level, yellow is at risk, green is on, blue is above. These are the numbers, so we had 136 students who were below level, significantly below level, at the middle of the year. District-wide, so this is the district-wide kindergarten data. At the end of this was beginning of the year, middle of the year we had 63. So the kids came in, this is where they were, put them in front of teachers, 63% of them, or 63 students district-wide continued to be off level. This is now end of year, so we had 66 because you take the 63 and the other kids that were, although it's really supposed to be 65, I'm not sure where the 66 came from. But then you've got, a move, right. So then middle of the year, end of the year, we ended up with 20 students. So, and then you can see these are the same kids. So of these 66 students who were middle of the year, 20 of them stayed, 16 went to yellow. 21 of them moved to on level and 9 of them moved to above level. And this is the composite, which takes into account all of those subsets up there. So that's kind of what all these colors mean. And they're the same way each grade level. So the same colors will be. So that's where our kindergarten ended up. District-wide, we ended up with 86% of our kindergarten kids moving from kindergarten to first grade that were on level. Typically, you want 85. That's, when you look at an RTI pyramid or a response to intervention pyramid, you've got 85% of your students who are typically on level, and then those students who need support, and then the top tier at the top is, the 2-3% that need, that require special education services. So then we break it down into the different specific subsets. So phoneme segmentation is where we really spend our focus at kindergarten. It's that phonemic awareness, being able to hear sounds, manipulate sounds, and this is how it's broken down by building. So again, that top number is where the students were at middle of the year, and then those same students where they are, the numbers at the bottom are end of the year.
This is for kindergarten. Can you go back one slide? So then why is there no red under the green column, for instance? But if you go to the next, is it a different test?
This is composite, so this is taking into all of account. So this is the first kind of checkpoint that we look at, and then we get into the different skills. This is one of the main skills that we look at because this is your foundation.
I had noted, as you know, I'm usually looking
Yep.
for the regression. It's, obviously it's easy to see
Yep.
the progression, but like in green, there's red, that green's that becomes
Yes.
red, there's a blue that becomes red, and there wasn't any of those on the prior slide, so I was just.
Correct, yep, because this is just the focus on this skill. And what sometimes happens is, one, the standard moves, and I've talked about that, but the other thing is sometimes the kids, when they are green and blue, specifically blue, they've already mastered this, so they're beyond it. So sometimes when now you're asking them to come back and just break, it's harder for them because they're past it. So you do see some of that, but then typically what we hope is that that's just an anomaly with that one student down there at Millard Hawk. And when you get to the nonsense word fluency, he or she is reading words.
So Aaron, I don't know when would be a good time to ask. Could you talk about if they went to pre-K, how much better in kindergarten they do if they don't? Is it something that you track? Is it something that you look at?
I do
You have
look
a
at
gut
it.
feeling for it?
I do look at it. This would be really the only sub-test that I can compare, and that's going to be one of my, when I was looking at some of the pieces of the literacy briefs that we just did at the retreat, that's one of the notes I made to myself is we look at kindergarten, we track the imagination library, the kids who have text in front of them. I take a look at it, I meet with pre-K, but I don't, that's something I have to do better at is here are the kids who were in pre-K, here's how they're doing in kindergarten, especially on this one, because that's, like I said, the foundation, and that's the big area that even pre-K works on is the Haggerty and the phonological awareness. So that's one of my personal goals for this year, so I can keep you updated on that.
I think it would be important for two aspects, right? You have one to sell the cost of it,
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, this is our program, it's worth it, this is money well spent. And then two, it's also, I don't know if I really want my child to go to
Right.
pre-K, right? I want to be home with me one more year. So it could be a sell of, they'll get a jump, it'll be a little bit better of a
Right.
thing.
I
So-
can tell you that at kindergarten screening, the kids that go through pre-K score better on those kindergarten screening tests, and all the teachers who are at those different stations, they can
They can pick 'em out,
differentiate the
right?
kids between
Sure.
who attended and who didn't. So I do know that.
And that was always my understanding of it. So as you try and sell, we're all out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
I know people, oh my gosh, it's called, but it's money well spent,
Yep.
right? Pre-K.
And that's a conversation we're going to have to start with pre-K and looking at, once all the buildings are kind of back to their home court, looking at full day versus half day. So that's a conversation that Tom and I have kind of started a little bit, and there's pros and cons to each, right? Like right now, we can service 36 students half day in each one of our buildings. You go full day, it's only 18.
Right.
But then they're with us long, so that's a conversation that we're going to be having.
Well, because again, 9 years ago, it wasn't a sentiment that was shared among all board members. It was thought, well, that's not required at UPK. So we've come a long way in I don't want to say educating people because they may take that the wrong way, but to really sharing what you just said. We see a lot of the behaviors for students that have never been part of UPK, the structure, the rigor of being in school, even for a half day, than just being babysat by an aunt, uncle, or grandparent. So anecdotally, qualitatively, we totally see the benefit of it.
And I can verify that. I volunteered in Kelly Foster's kindergarten class for 3 years, and you can pick up
Absolutely.
who is at it,
Yep.
pre-K, and who hasn't.
And that was the only other, two comments on that, similar to what Steve said is, and Tom touched on. I think it'd be interesting at kindergarten, but I also think it'd be interesting if we put so much value, reasonably, we put a lot of value into what they're doing in third grade, right? And it would be interesting to see, you know, how that played out by the
Yeah, the
time they were in
cohorts.
third grade. But more so, and I mean, I think it goes to student success, this is the behavior piece. I mean, the kids are already used to being in a classroom, they're not getting used to that as they're
Right.
trying also to learn how to read and everything else. So, but I don't think, we are always over, we have a waiting list every year for pre-K, right?
For many buildings,
Right,
yep.
and so in terms of having opportunity, I think it's more the money piece, it's money well spent going forward.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Is there data available that supports the difference between private pre-K or our internal program?
No, we don't, I don't know as if there's many, because we don't really we have got Sunny Days.
Right.
And then we have Head Start, which isn't private, but Sunny Days is. I met with both Head Start and Sunny Days, not this past year, the year before, and I'm set to do it again this year. And actually Kathy Landers just reached out to me too, that she's working with somebody in Onondaga County. And Sunny Days and Head Start both switched to Haggerty, so that, you know, it was kind of the
They're aligning with
conversation
us.
as to what we're doing here.
Okay.
They can't necessarily adopt our CKLA in that program, but they did add the Haggerty piece, so they know what our focus is.
Okay.
So that they do have, you know, a baseline for those kids. But in terms of, I could look and see if in their registration, if it indicates if they went to Sunny Days to see
Okay.
what the comparison is, but I do know that they did make that change, so it was a meeting well spent.
I also think a big piece that often gets left out, not with me, because my youngest was on the autism spectrum, still is, and the services that he got when he was 2, 3, where in Oswego County, and she touched upon the number of service providers, and that's on the county responsibility. We've done everything we can to help. We talked about Casey Sechner's role was to be able to service, but it's nowhere near the number of services that are in Onondaga County. So we have many students that have been identified that early intervention is huge, that, you know, at ESM, they've got Park Hill, 2, 3, 4 years old. They're getting all of these services, where in this county, it's no fault to any of us, but the services just aren't there. Whether that's a priority or whatnot, that's more of a legislative conversation. But the one thing that I really I'm going to continue to push for is the advocacy for all of those families in our county that they know that their child's been identified 2, 3, and 4 years old that aren't able to get those services by the county because those services aren't there. So that's something when we're at school boards, I know that's often talked about there. So what legislatively can we get done to guarantee that those services are there for the county? That's huge.
So then this is where we really get, this is where the students know their letters and sounds and can, in kindergarten, we're still focused on that. So you'll hear me, this is correct letter sound. So they can look at a nonsense word, a word that is not a real word, and sound out each of the sounds and then blend it together. So if they do that, they get credit for it. If they can just look at it and automatically read those sounds, they get much more credit because they're not having to slow down and sound everything out. So in kindergarten, this is why that's the slide where we shift to first grade is we look at the words read correctly because we want them to ultimately be able to look at a word, not have to sound it out and read it because that's reading, right? So this is in kindergarten where the kids were, and Kira and I do not know why there's no data available for that one, for Hastings, because there were 7 students that were still red. My logic is, when I was kind of trying to dig in, is that there were none, but then it would show you none there. So I'm not sure what that is, but, because they don't have it. Any questions on this? So then overall, when you look at the different breakdown, composite 1, composite 2, composite 3, so you can see all of our kids came in when you take all of those sub-skills. All kind of, you know, kids are learning, and we do this very early on in the school year, and then the shift in how they grow from benchmark to benchmark. So composite 1 is done the first week in school. Composite 2 is January, usually when we come back off of Christmas break. And then composite 3 is the end of the year, usually like towards the beginning of June. So growth made. So that just sets them off on a good note going into first grade. So again, composite, and you'll see oral reading fluency was added to this one because now mid-year they start to get a passage where they have to read how many words can they read in a minute. So it's a little bit, you see the rigor increase in applying those reading skills. So 86% of our kids overall at the end of the year are going into second grade. Again, 85 is, the baseline where you kind of want all your kids to be, at least. We start there. Many of the individual buildings behind me have their own building goals are set a little bit higher at that point, but overall as a district, that's where we are. So here's that shift to words read correctly up there. So this is where they look at a nonsense word and just read it. So our kids are doing well with this. And it's hard because you get to those kids that are reading and they're reading passages and they're reading books, and now you're asking them to read a word that doesn't make sense. And again, so that's a hard shift to make. But our kids were able to maintain, if they were blue middle of the year, they were able to maintain that. So that's, it's getting there is one thing, staying there is another, right? So they were able to maintain that. So that's a good thing. And then you can see that green area, more kids moved to the blue side too. And then our first grade composite. So it was interesting. One of our school psychs in the district puts together all of the data for us, and he put together a 3-year trend. And I didn't want to go it because it would have been really long, but I could talk about it for a long time. So Steve, you can come over and we can have coffee. But the 3-year trend shows that the efforts and the work that we're doing is paying off, because you can see our kids started in green. Where in kindergarten they came in yellow, our kids are starting in green. And the number of kids that are where they need to be at each benchmark increases, especially in our primary, which is the primary focus. We're still working behind me and with our consultants on shifting that into the oral reading fluency piece, not just the foundational skills, because this is foundational. That oral reading fluency is really where you get into the text and the application part, and that really just comes with students reading more books in their hand, not being read to, and we're trying to kill that a little bit, but we're making headway. So, in second grade, I do not have a composite for second grade because there are kids, not every kid is represented in the composite because kids test out. So if they get to that nonsense word fluency or the words read correctly part and they hit a certain score, they test out, so they don't get counted into the composite. So I didn't even put that in here. This is where we really put our focus on second grade, because they've got, by the end of second grade, they have the code. They have the basic code. They've got their advanced consonants, advanced vowels, digraphs, all that kind of stuff. And now we're really putting it into practice in the application part. So this is where we've got to get those kids reading a little bit more often in decodable text for the kids who are in the red and yellow. And then for the kids that are in the blue and the green, reading different kinds of text, because the more you read, the better you get. So that's kind of our push right now, is what are those other stories that we all have in our libraries that we use when we were guided reading that are there and are good, very good stories that we can use in books that the kids who can get the words off the page should be reading and having conversation about. So that's where we're really trying to push that. And you have some anomalies, right? Like we pulled up a few kids. That one student at Hastings, we know we were able to drill down before they closed this off to see who that student was. And it's a student who tends to have some behavior. So if it was a day and he just didn't feel like playing. He didn't play. So, same thing with the one at Millard Hawk. So you have those days too, and do you redo it? Like, that's the debate, right? Do you redo it? And it's not really valid then, because they've already seen the passage, because it's only one passage that you have, so. But we definitely have more kids, you know, staying down there in that blue area, and they're not dipping down into the yellow, which is good. So here's second grade. And again, you see again, ORF and maze. So the maze is where they're given a closed passage, and they have to make meaning of what they're reading, and they're given 3 choices of what the word could possibly be in there. And a lot of times what the kids will do is it'll make sense in that sentence, the word, but then as they get through the passage a little bit more, they don't go back to say, oh yeah, no, that doesn't really make sense. So that's understanding what you're reading and knowing what the vocabulary word is underneath, or the grammar piece, 2 and 2, there, and there. What do those mean? So working on that language aspect of things. And then third grade, again, is ORF. That's where that second grade shift goes. Same thing with third. And this is getting kids in text. And I cannot stress that enough. That's what we are stressing with the teachers. That just has to happen. Fourth. So this has been our struggling group the last few years, and we have kind of identified the shift from middle of the year. The middle of the year passage is about being honest. Kids hear that all the time, where the end of the year passage is, while it's about camping, there's a lot of different situational pieces that happen in the text. So it's a more complex text, but the kids, because fourth grade, that has kind of been our focus, they have worked to give kids more. So they do a poetry unit. They do nonfiction. They have more nonfiction and fiction in their curriculum. So they're doing more, and it has been why are they doing this in fourth grade? They work so hard. But our results are better. Kids were able to maintain and hold because this has been a grade level that we've really focused on. Now we need to expand it a little bit more.
Erin, when you say this group, do you mean fourth grade the
grade.
year, or this group?
This
of fourth?
grade level, fourth
Okay.
grade, that's the one that's got that harder. I have emailed Dibbles, but it's not just a New York State test, to get some answers, because we've analyzed it. They did not get back to me.
Like when last year you used the example when it was a passage that said, at the end of the day of camping, they retired back to their cabin. And kids are like, well, no, my grandfather retired.
Right.
That's from his job.
It's just
Like,
not their language. They don't use
Correct.
that vocabulary, so, yeah. And then fifth grade, again, reading. And then there's the district. Do you guys have any?
Could you talk about, because this reading program's been in for 5-6 years?
Where we focused on the science of reading?
Right, well, you changed, right, then the whole county
Yep,
went
science,
to,
yep.
right, went to a new reading program and a new way to go, right? Because we went the first year, teachers got instructed on it, and then we implemented it. So we're in year, what, 5, you think?
Because it was right before COVID started.
Right.
And that was where our initial training happened, and then COVID hit, and our teachers, they did a very, very good job continuing with that, but you still have those kids that didn't get on.
I'd say 5 years. It was the Oswego County Literacy.
Yeah, the
Initiative.
Oswego
Right.
County Literacy thing, so,
Yeah, because, so,
yeah.
what do you think,
So like I said,
right?
that data for the foundational skills. Now it is really that oral reading fluency and the language part. So there's two sides to Scarborough's rope. There's the word knowledge, the decoding part, where it's the phonological awareness, the sounds and all of that. But then there's the other side of it, which is the language, vocabulary, that side of it. We have done a big focus down here on this part. We're getting more staff trained with the second part of our letters training so that they understand here, but you've got to have 1 through 4 before you get 5 through 8. So when we went 1 through 4, we prioritized and we started with our primary teachers because they're the ones where the foundational skills are taught. Once everybody got 1 through 4 for our knowledge building and how you teach it, we then switched our focus. So the teachers that teach 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in middle school they're getting the 5 through 8 now, they started it and we're working our way back, so primary teachers will get it second. Foundation-wise, I think we are solid, and even when you see 3, 4, 5, the numbers of kids reading it's still increasing each year from the 3-year trend.
Right.
We definitely have ways to go. We shouldn't see that many kids read at 3, 4, 5, and it just is a matter of getting kids to do the reading.
So that's the thing. We can do what we're going to do in our classrooms, and Aaron and the principal's done a wonderful job shifting the mindset from when I came into the district and you walked around through the elementary buildings, you would see a lot of teachers, maybe it was after recess, but for about 45 minutes to an hour, they're reading, to their kids, and the kids are all listening, and then all the research says, no, you got to have the kids read. We've made that shift. But what we're seeing statistically, we're seeing across the state, and I'm sure it's across the country, but what I've seen is the state where fewer and fewer and fewer parents are putting books in their kids' hands to say, like 20, 30 years ago, I remember growing up, I couldn't even on vacation in the Jersey Shore in our campground, I couldn't even go to the pool until my brothers and my sister and I read, a certain amount of passages from a book and answered a couple questions. Now that's gone. And so some parents are doing this, but overall, it is a huge drop in our country, especially our state, with kids reading at home. And so to me, that's where we got to drive home goal number 4, the partnership between the district and the parents, and every opportunity to say to parents, they have linked vocabulary acquisition to kids' success rate when they get out. And they say in a poverty household, they only hear this much vocabulary. It's tremendous, the difference. And so if they want to talk about a gap happening at those early grades, parents really need to do this. And so that's where I know my first superintendent parent council meeting is going to be coming up. And Casey's in charge of that now. As the facilitator, that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about. That's a huge push to get those books into kids' hands.
Well, that also falls on the parent, too.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But it's not even that. This county has a huge poverty level at the adult level also. So a lot of it it's more on the parents don't want to look embarrassed. And that's really falls to the county legislators and stuff like that, because I know, I've seen them. I have customers that come into my bank that can't read and write, that are older than me, some are the same age as me, and they're too proud. They're not gonna, they will point blank say, I know how to draw my name. That's it. Yeah. And that's in Central Square School District. So
we do have
so it's not just, so if you have that, it flows downhill. If the parents can't do it, they're not going to push the kids.
We have a lot of parents that do have time that they're saying, even in the summer, you're going to read. It's important. But the growing number of parents that aren't doing that, and it's not just the Central Square, superintendents say it all the time, we got to get back to that, where students are reading a lot more, where now the communication is different, where they're just texting their friends over the summer, or they're doing FaceTime. So they're not even having those times where they would sit down and read a passage and then have to go back into the text to find an answer. Where when I grew up, my generation is, our parents made us. I remember my friend saying, I got to read these 2 passages time before I come over to your house. I'd be like, I just did mine. And that was over the summer.
Yeah, my own daughter's 9th grade. She doesn't even have a summer reading book. That's always kind of been a thing in the district that my kids go to. But when she hits 9th grade, she doesn't have to unless she's in the honors class. And I said, well, that's great, but you don't have to do the activity, but you're going to read the book.
Right.
So we read the book, and then my son has his, and he's reading it with his dad so that we can talk about it. Because some of it is up here, but it's not it's the honors class. The honors class does, but they have to. There's a summer reading. Yeah, no, it's
But
not
when we
they
were in
just have a
school-
summer reading book.
But I don't think, our kids don't.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember doing it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's why our district changed, was because it's only now the honors kids that have to do the project. I don't know,
So,
but I think it's because a lot of kids,
Oh, they just won't do it.
Right.
They just-
Right, well, and I mean, there's a huge elephant in the room, right? Books have been replaced by electronic devices. I mean, that's what kids want to hold on to. They don't want to hold on to a book. So, grand scheme of things.
you made mention that there was training when the reading program had changed. Two factors that I'm thinking as you were explaining that. Is there follow-up training for the teachers? Any refresher or teachers that haven't necessarily adopted that we would want them to, where there's structured training for them? First question. We do?
you want me to answer it?
Yeah.
So the first question is, the refresher, we're still working to get everybody through it.
Okay.
So once everybody is through it, I actually have our 2 letters trainers meeting with City BOCES, one of their trainers up there, to bring it down to our level so that the people behind me, it's the what to look for. So when
Right.
you are doing your observations and your walkthroughs, what is it that you're looking for, and how, so that you're connecting what the teachers have gotten the training on, so that you can have that conversation. So they're meeting with her so that they can come and turnkey it to these guys.
So do we know when that piece of the training would be completed? Will that have a significant impact on next year's results?
Our plan is the fall.
Okay.
So I'm hoping, yes.
Okay, that's
the
good.
goal. That is the goal.
And we've had a lot of new hires.
Yes.
Do they go
They
through
all
the
get-
initial
yes.
training? Okay.
Yep, yep. So Toby and Travis will, we will get with them, and we do their training very early. And then we filter in the 5 through 8 after. And what we did was, because we've got 2 trainers, we have 2 groups of about 10, because it's hard to get subs. So we alter when they're doing it. So Toby will take 10 teachers, Travis takes 10 teachers. That way, if a teacher misses or is absent, they usually do it off each other, so that they can then take
Got it.
10 Travises and then, vice versa. So that, we tried that this year, and that worked very well, because then you can get 20 teachers through it at a time. It does create a sub issue, but you gotta,
They need the
Peter to
training.
pay
If
Paul,
if
so
it's
that's
working,
correct. And we
find a way
can't
to get
make
them trained.
anybody do it over the summer.
Right.
It's encouraged,
Sure.
right? But we can't make them, but during the school year, we're doing this.
But Chrissy, Chrissy brings up the very valid point that the elephant in the room is that there are a lot of parents, when those kids are 3 years old, the Chromebook or the iPad or the phone that they give them becomes the babysitter.
Oh, sure.
And so where it used to be a parent would read a page in the book, now the kid reads a book. I remember sitting with my mother, a teacher for 50 years, reading books. And so many of them now, the kids, they have devices. And I'm not saying some of those things like my son would do, that Mickey Mouse, like that one app there where, yeah, these learning Spanish and whatnot, but it's not the same as reading. And that's a mindset we need to get back to.
And I will be the first to admit, my kids, if they have idle time, there's no kids that are bored anymore. I mean, half the time I read when I was a kid was when I was bored. There was nothing else to do, rainy day or whatever. And now it's just pick up a device. I mean, it'll be sunny outside and a lot of kids just pick up a device, And if the parents aren't there to kick them out and take the device away, then,
was
I mean,
just
what are
saying
the
this to
chances they're gonna pick up a book?
I was just saying this to a co-parent that we just met with at 4:30 today. We had a great conversation for an hour. My son, my youngest son, so he's going into 5th grade, had a sleepover, 4 of his friends. I walked into the room, 4 of them are on devices, all sitting on the...
Talking to each other.
They're all on the device, and they're all laughing and giggling, but, they're all playing different games. I'm like, okay, that's going to go away. We're going to go have a campfire. We're going to, we're going to go outside. But they were...
And that is this generation.
100%.
It is, and COVID didn't help with that, because they were all stuck home and on devices for school, on devices for social.
I don't think
on
it's just
devices
this
for
I think it's the generation 2 before that as
Right,
well.
it's yeah.
Well, and that's why we've got it, right? We can't control what happens when they leave our doors. So we can only control what we have from 9 to 3:45. That's why we need to make sure our kids are reading. And they've got different types of text in front of them. So that's, there are kids who need support, but how can you scaffold it so that they get that practice so that they can eventually read a paragraph on their own? Because that's, it starts with a word, then it goes to a sentence, and it builds from there. And once they have that confidence, they can do it. It's just, it's gonna take time, and that's why we have these great teachers, and we're investing in the training.
But it's
for
not
them.
just us. So I'm going to continue to have conversations with the local libraries because their vote goes on our propositions, right? But so when I was a kid, and as corny as it may sound, Mateo, you may think this is corny, right? But when I was in elementary school, I would walk down to the local library, and there were always contests throughout the year. So whether it was Halloween or whether it was like Christmas time, and if you read the book and the person would ask you some questions, you get to put the snowman up. Well, I wanted Tommy Kelabufo to have 1,000 snowmen that I won the contest. We've moved away from that. I think it's not just in schools, but we really need to get as a community to have those opportunities because kids love the competition. They love to do those things. So that is something that I'm going to circle back with the libraries. I mean, they have skin in the game. We have skin in the game. They're voting at our propositions. Those are some of the ways to be able to incentivize kids to come back to be
And
able to do
I will
it.
say Central Square does that, in fact, but, I mean, it's disheartening in the sense that, I mean, even, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I mean, I met Cooper and Dave and his wife and Caden at Circle Time, but there was 4 of us there, you know, for the whole area of Central Square being the closest library for all of the North Shore. And there was only 4 of us there. But at the same time, I will say, my kids went to Cole, so I don't have the experience some of you have with the other schools, but, you know, they did that. So a lot of the teachers would have, it was like an incentive program, and it was extra. It wasn't part of like a homework assignment, but it was like a game, a competitive game. And if you read the book, there was, I can't remember the name of the company, but you could go online and take a 5 or 10, depending on the length of the book, a 5 or 10 question test. And if you got a 60 or above, you got credit for the book, and it was a competition among the students in class.
And Brent does something like that with math where he brings all the kids, walks down to McDonald's, and the parents love it. And the kids are so happy to be able to see where they are in the cafeteria on the wall. It's these little incentives that,
Yeah.
They 100% matter.
They buy in. It gets buy-in.
Yep.
You guys have anything to say, share? Do you have any questions for any of them?
Great job.
Yeah. The numbers look much better.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. You know, I've been, as you know, I've been tracking this since I've been on the board, and it's really, this is a big thing to get a push of a district this size, to get where we were and to get positive results. I remember Connie sitting over there chastising me and lecturing me about how hard this was to raise by 2 points. And to see your success, it just is wonderful to see. I can't thank you enough, and you guys are doing a great job.
I do have something to say, actually.
There you go.
So, I've been here a long time, right? I started in 2000 as a principal here, and the results have come up so dramatically. I didn't ever think I would see 90% of our kids, 85% of our kids reading green, blue, ever in any grade level. It was always 60, 65%. That was about where we were. And to watch this happen and get all the way up there and consistently now, 85, 90, we're hitting 15 extra percent, 20 extra percent of kids, and that makes a difference over the long haul. So it's really, really had an impact, and I love the program. It's been a heavy lift, and it continues to be hard work, but the scores are coming along with it too, so.
And we have the buy-in too. So years ago here, when you walk around, you would have some teachers doing popcorn reading, some kids just trying to memorize what they were going to read next, or the kids that were speaking in tongues, right? Where they go, and you didn't know what they're saying because they were just trying to read as many words as they possibly could. Everything has changed. The buy-in from the principals, the teachers. Aaron has done a tremendous job. It's just been fantastic to see the growth of the progression of where we have come. It's been great. And where we're going.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. It's huge strides.
Okay, if I could get a motion for item E.
A motion.
Get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on E? All those in favor? Next, item F. Could I get a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion for the consent agenda in its entirety?
In
Is there
its
anything we have-
entirety.
Okay. So the bold doesn't have to be separate, Pearl? Okay, I didn't know why that was in bold. Oh, okay, gotcha. You good, Steve? You got motion?
I got a motion, do I have a
Motion.
second?
Motion by Randy,
Randy,
second by
sec-
me.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, item G, reports. We'll start off with Mateo.
I have a few things today. First, fall sports signups have opened up. All practices will begin the week of the 26th. Second, the high school is hosting a Red Hawk football camp from the 19th to the 21st for our incoming junior varsity and varsity athletes. As you might be aware, we recently had our Europe trip students return. They were lucky enough to be given the opportunity through the school to travel to Europe, exploring the countries of France, Portugal, and Spain. And lastly, student government is getting ready to plan for homecoming, and they have a very special event planned for Paul V. Moore students and staff on Tuesday, September 17th at the high school. Additionally, they will be hosting a lunch block party during all of third block, where students will have the opportunity to engage in a variety of games and activities. Moreover, every student and staff member at Paul V. Moore will receive a Dunkin' gift card, and this event is sponsored by High School Nation and was recommended to Ms. Shantz by other members of the NYS CLSA board or the New York State Council on Leadership in Student Activities. This may or may not sound familiar to the board because our district sends students to the annual conference every year, which will be held in Lake Placid this year. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, item 2, board member reports. Anybody have anything to talk about?
You're gonna talk about the sport thing?
Yes.
Okay, and that, so I won't talk about that. The only thing I'll talk about is the Claudia Tenney's office hosted a Zoom call. It actually wasn't her, it was one of her staffers. And they basically, they talked very generally about a lot of things that we already have our thumb on the button, you know, thanks to the information that's passed down. One of the things that came up was obviously the electric buses. And, you know, they said that they're, you know, obviously trying to push that back or make changes to that mandate. They didn't really have much of an update. They just kind of said what we already have known, you know, what we've been told. And I would say that was about it. It really wasn't, it was only a half an hour. It wasn't too informative because I feel like we probably are on the front end of being informed as a board. So we, there was one thing that they talked about with respect to IT, like access to internet, and it came up, and I don't know if people were aware, and I'm sure Tom is, but the spoofing and the you know, terroristic, for all intents and purposes, terroristic threats, where people are pretending over in it was one of the school board members that was on the call was a member from the school district that was impacted by the call that there was an active shooter in the school, and, you know, police, everybody, like, converged on the school.
Basically
So,
like SWAT calls.
yeah, it was out in Buffalo way, I think.
West Hill last year, too.
Okay, yeah, so, and they were talking about the need to obviously boost security on that, so.
Yep, and on mine, I could touch upon that first.
You just run me right over.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were at September.
Now, I just have 3 things that I'd like to talk about. One was the Micron meeting that we had with Dr. Robert Simmons, and I'll let Tom talk about what the future is going to be. But what I had is, I had a personal relationship with the person that works with Micron, and we met, and I didn't really know what that was going to involve, right? I go into it wanting to know everything that's coming up with Micron. That was kind of my emphasis of meeting with Joe. And it really turned in, and he had always heard, his office was next to mine, he was Senator Schumer's director for the Syracuse area, and the reason I know him is that my daughter-in-law was Buffalo's director for Senator Schumer, so we struck up a friendship for the last 7 years. And he talked about this, Dr. Robert Simmons, who is the, community education developer for Micron, and said that he would, give me your email, Tom's email, we'll make a contact. So I didn't really have I had a wish, but I didn't really know what kind of fruit it was really gonna bear. So he quickly, Tom sent him an email, reached out to us, then we had I think a fantastic meeting where he talked about, in a lot of the things that he talked about in the meeting, I looked up in a YouTube video, where, talked about his partnership, there's 6 goals. I mean, and I've got notes, and I can go over it with everybody, but it's really, it was refreshing to hear. It was kind of tough in hearing that we're probably about a year behind, Oswego County is about a year behind, because I think one of the reasons that he met with us so quickly is that he has not had any interaction with Oswego County BOCES, where he talks twice a week with Onondaga County BOCES superintendent. He just hasn't had that, and he really, he doesn't meet with individual school districts. He did it because of my friendship with Joe, but he's very collaborative and sharing resources. I mean, big emphasis on having the ability to work with other people within your region, but throughout the world. They're a multinational facility. This facility in Syracuse, for all those that don't think that it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Okay, they're building it. As Joe described it, all Micron's chips are all in on Syracuse. It's going to be the largest manufacturing facility that they have, and that most of the jobs that they're going to be providing are going to be non-college degree technical jobs. That the scientific, engineering, that type of stuff is going to be at their home base, or might be over in Japan or in Taiwan. But Syracuse is mainly going to be a manufacturing facility, so they need trades, educated students. Dr. Simmons is a he has his PhD, is an educator, he was a teacher, and they realized that it starts in elementary school grade and works its way up. And it was really, I thought, a great meeting. I thought that he really, I think we're going to be well connected now, in that I think Tom can, as I said in the meeting, Thomas, time to pick up the football and let's go, right? Let's get with the other superintendents, let's get a plan together, and let's get engaged with him, so.
So I can tell you.
Yeah,
So Steve was able to make the connect. Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah,
So
so-
Steve was able to make that connection to the person that he worked with in his previous employment, who knew Robert. So Robert did meet with all of the superintendents. 7 out of the 9. The DS, Chris wasn't able to make that meeting at City BOCES, so he had never met Chris or talked to him. So when we were there, we set up. Now this was a year and a half ago. So when he said a year behind, we're more like almost 2 years behind.
I didn't want to sound that bad.
So full transparency, when we originally met, that I was really excited about this, and the pathways that our students would be able to have, because what they said from the beginning was, if you look what they did in Boise, kids could, with just a 2-year degree, which that's an opportunity for any Central Square student to graduate with a 2-year degree from here, to be able to make a job anywhere from $75,000 to $90,000. Boom, right there. That's the amount of skilled workers that they need. But then I would bring it up at Chiefs meetings, say, what's the status, what's the update? And again, I'm not throwing shade on anybody. I just want it to be perfectly clear that the fact that we're not there isn't on the local superintendents of lack of trying. They just only do collaborative meetings. Like, you have to have an established, what they refer to as an ecosystem, right? A network. And so he's happy to meet with the entire county, and Onondaga County went all in 2 years ago. So Matt Cook had met, he is, as Robert said, 2 to 3 times, sometimes 4 times, has his personal cell phone. He gave me his personal cell phone. So it wasn't like it's hard to get a hold of him. And so I'm really excited about it. But again, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I always say I want for these kids what my kids have. I live in Onondaga County. That's not been a secret. You'll see me at Walmart. You see me at all these restaurants, but I live in Onondaga County. So my kid was at Chip Camp at OCC. We had the opportunity to in Onondaga County to send kids to sports in STEM and sports, and that's up on the university. So in Onondaga County, they had tons of students up there at SU learning from SU professors and high school teachers, and then the second half, they're there with SU football players and basketball players and whatnot. We missed out on that opportunity, and it's bad because I was at a graduation party. And I'll just say, because he does a lot for the community. I was at Vinny Lobdell's house in Skaneateles, and he knows everybody. He's wired in everybody. So Herman Frazier is in charge of all athletics at Syracuse University. He's higher than the athletic director. And when Vinny introduced me to him, we had a great conversation about partnering, because that STEM and sports was through Micron. And they were just surprised that there weren't a lot of Oswego County schools. There were none. And so I wanted him to know that our teachers, our parents, our students, we want this. So while we can't look backwards, it's all about moving forwards. But now we're fully committed. And it's in public space that, Chris is retiring in April. And so I want to play a key role. I know there's already an established process when a DS retires, and it's really run from the commissioner, and they have a sitting a DS do the search. So whether it's Matt Cook, it could be Brian Hartwell, whoever that is, we as a city, or Oswego County superintendents want to meet and say, look, here are our priorities. And a big part of it's Micron. Another part of it is making sure that there's enough programming for our extreme special education behavior students that our teachers are struggling with. We get it. Other parents want to know why the kids have to be taken out of classrooms. So there's a lot to that role, and I only mention this because we're going to make sure, our goal is to make sure that we get somebody in there and then we do it right.
The Micron relationship that we started, are we able to close that gap?
Yes. Yep. No, so the next step is that we're all meeting with Matt Cook over at OCM BOCES, because he's been doing this for 2 years. And so we're meeting with him. The next step is that Central Square is going to host in September. We're working on the date. We're going to first have a meeting with Matt Cook, with Robert Simmons, a couple other people from Micron, over in Onondaga County. All of us are going there to figure out what that's going to look like, but we already said Central Square will host it, so it'll be board members from all the 9 component school districts, their administrative teams, and all the superintendents to be able to then figure out a time that we can have it here with all of those people, and a time that works, for everybody. It's going to be a lot of people. We'll host it. Micron's like, we'll pay for the beverages, we'll pay for the food, everything, because we want people to be able to buy into this, because the number one school district that they're saying 7 to 10 years from now is going to be Central Square. If you look at the available land, and we're that close. If you just look in the available land that's just sitting there across our district, that's 5 minutes from the Clay Micron site in most places. And they say that it goes as far as 45-minute driving. That's our entire district from the Micron location. So that's the next step. Something will go out in September when we plan, and then it's going to be quick. It's going to be when we're going to have the chip camps available. And Central Square may host it 1 month. The next one might be Phoenix, but our students will be able to go to all of those.
He was in Rochester. He's convinced that people are going to commute from Rochester to here to work. He goes, I'm in Rochester, right? He goes, we're on a phone call.
Yeah.
He says it's an hour away. They'll commute, and I'm like, oh, okay, but so we're right here. That's the way I look at it. We're right here.
Tom, what about, is Chairman Weatherup doing anything? He's the county legislator for Oswego. What the heck is he doing?
That's a good question.
What is Barkley doing?
So I can tell you, when I was meeting with those other 4 superintendents, it would be Al Sturpey was there, people from Mackney were there, but that wasn't from the standpoint of like what Steve had hooked us up with Robert, with like what is the established pathway. It was more like, how do we change legislation? Because make no mistake, in 5 years, we could have 1,000 more students here. So it's about changing legislation and how we put in for capital projects instead of real student numbers.
Right.
A solid estimate based on how many people are going to be hired there, the location to our area, and how much building, like construction, is available in our area that's not available in Clay, that's not available in Liverpool, that will come here. And so that's what we worked on. But again, to answer your question, I don't really know. And so usually what happens is it's the county, it's the district superintendent. So Matt Cook has had extensive meetings with Ryan McMahon, all the players, Chuck Schumer, all the players that you need to have those conversations with, because there's so many facets of this. It's not just, all these people are going to converge on our school. It's everything is going to change. And so when you look at where the housing is going to be available and whatnot, things that we can do to incentivize, there's no doubt that Onondaga County has far more skin in the game than Oswego County. And I'll publicly say Oswego County and the legislators, they really have to step this up, because they're going to get one shot at this. People are going to come here. Major developers are going to come here. If people think that the North Shore is going to look like what parts of the North Shore look like right now in 6 years, it's gentrification is going to happen. You're going to have all the restaurants. You're going to have salons. You're going to have, weight rooms. There's going to be thousands. They need 2,500 living spaces every year for the next 20 years. So let that sink in. That's huge. And so when developers come, restaurants are going to come. Hotels are going to come. Another hospital is going to come. So the question is, to your point, is Oswego County prepared for this? I love the new president up at SUNY Oswego. We're working with him a lot. He wants a lot for the students here, and he's going to be offering scholarships that could only be for students that live in the component districts in Oswego County. So there's a lot of things that
We as a board should be calling our Oswego County legislators.
I tell you, if the board members want to really help out, they love to hear directly from parents, which all of you are. So those are great questions. What is the county? Go to one of their board meetings and say, what's the county doing to be able to, prepare for this? I know that the village I just had a conversation with Mud Murphy. He's always meeting in what the village of Central Square is doing to prepare. And they're in the process with some of the properties that are just sitting around here to do some pretty great stuff, because it's going to happen real quick.
Yeah, it was astonishing to me just in the breadth and scope of what his vision was, and that not only there are going to be people from all over the country moving into this area, but really all over the world. I mean, they're going to be bringing in a workforce, because they have this in other places throughout the world. He talked about having the tools to be able to work with people where English isn't your first language, and they have this program all set up. So I'm very, very, very excited about that, and I think we're in a better place now than we were probably 3-4 weeks ago. I sent out the proposal that's going to be going up for the Board of Regents, and I sent out a email to Patrick Mannon. He's our Board of Regents rep. So I didn't know if you want to think about what collectively we want to do as far as a message to him. He said that he'd be more than happy to meet with us if you want to talk to him about it. But to me, when I got the email about it, is that we really should have a collective statement to him. He's our rep, and a lot of times these things will happen and nobody gets to say a word. So my thought on it is that either I think Rob Price, the superintendent of Onondaga, sent the email that he sent. I couldn't agree with him more, but that's just personally me. It's really, this is the board's thoughts and perspective on it. So if it's different than what you can convey it, we can get it together and talk about it. But there's a 60-day period, and then he's going to vote. So he's supposed to set up with Chris for a meeting. So I didn't know if we want to try and get the next board meeting, have him come in and talk, or if we just want to send off a letter or.
I would like the opportunity for him to come here. I mean, things happen when people come here. Chris Todd came here when they didn't have an available spot for industrial electrical, and then all of a sudden they've got that whole, lab open. So if people don't know really what we're talking about, so my position, it's political, right? So if I say something, I'm going to tick off some of the parents in the community, but it doesn't stop me from saying something that I just don't see. It's so black and white to me. So basically, you can have boys that identify as boys. They're boys that can, let's say, play volleyball. So if the two sports aren't at the same time, so boys volleyball, the nets are 12 inches higher than girls volleyball. And so the boys can say, well, I'm going to play a different sport at that time, but I'm going to play on the girl. I'm going to go out for the girls' team. And I don't want any girls to watch this and go, oh my God, the superintendent thinks that, what? That's not about that. But on average, if you look at the average high school boy compared to the average high school girl, there are some strength issues, maybe some height issues that play. And now, obviously, there are anomalies that I'm sure that we have some female athletes that would dominate boys when they go against them. Of course, we've had phenomenal athletes here that are strong, that are great. But on average, I'm talking about average, the law of average. And so the fact that boys would then be playing in an unfair advantage, there's a reason why when the boys play, it's 12 inches higher. So there are obvious things with all girls. If we ever were to get the numbers for an all-girls wrestling team, that's Greco-Roman. It's different than what that the boys play, and so there's certain advantages there. And for me, I was fortunate to play college baseball at Lemoyne College. So there are opportunities now in Title IX that over the past, I just feel it's setting our country back. It's setting our state back years and years and years, because if I had a daughter, I'd want her to have the same opportunity to get a college scholarship that a boy would be able to have. And we worked so hard at that. To me, I don't know what this crazy agenda is going on in this state, but the pendulum has to swing back the other way, because this is not fair for girl athletes. It's just, I don't believe that it is. And so that's something I'm openly saying. But again, to Steve's point, this is why, like, when we have our board retreat, we can kind of be able in a safe place to be able, maybe if someone were to disagree and they can share it and whatnot, but the end goal is to be able to know where the board stands. I think I know where the board stands, but I'm really glad that that they're taking the initiative to call these people in, because it's one thing when they hear from administrators, it's a whole different ballgame when they hear from parents themselves. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, everybody, they'll schedule a meeting, a board member, have them come in. I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect him to answer my email. I was very surprised when he did. And then my last part that we can talk about, what I have done now that I think we've approved the new calendar of schedule, is that I have developed and entered all of our meeting dates in a Google Calendar, and I will invite everybody, because what I really would like to do is get Pearl out of the business of, are you coming to the meeting? So, I know, but if you'll get an invite from me tomorrow morning for all of the scheduled board meetings, and then all you gotta do is hit accept. For those that aren't Google savvy, just hit accept if you're planning on coming. If you're not, like, there's a meeting in October that I won't be able to make because I'm going on vacation, so I'll decline that, put a quick little reason. I've shared the calendar with Pearl so she can see that we'll have a quorum and you won't have to get, the day of follow-up, if everybody's okay with that.
Efficiency.
Efficiency. It just to me, I'm nothing without that calendar. So it's all typed up, everything's ready to go. All I gotta do is add your email address. So that's why I initially asked which
And
one
if
would be.
something comes up, if you can let Pearl know, because it's always our
Yeah.
goal to have a quorum of 5.
Right.
Yep, and that's all we're looking at. So with that,
Well, and
that's
to be clear, just for anybody that doesn't use it, even if you accept today, and in 3 months, all of a sudden, the day before the meeting, you have a conflict, you can go in and change it to decline.
yeah. Can't make it. Something just come up. So and so. It's really easy, and then at least we can tally it up and say, well, we had 7, now we got 6, but we still got a meeting. It's still a go.
That does send reminders, like, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
good part about that too is sometimes some of you could switch something that's super important you to be at. You could try to do it, but if you see that there is a quorum there, then it's
yeah.
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 Communication's the key. And
Yep.
I want to get Pearl out of the communications, that line of it, for business, if it's all I can. I'm trying. With that, that's all I got.
Just a couple updates. So tomorrow there will be a listening kind of feedback session for AA Cole parents. Again, it's a pretty big transition as we're going from Principal Smolik, who's been there for 10 years, Now, the reason why we're doing this is we have 3 out of the 6 PTO members that are going to be there, and we have 1 non-PTO parent that's very, very involved and has had kids at multiple different levels. And she's going to be there from AA Cole. But to also be able to have this listening session, so if a parent can say, hey, you know what, we're doing certain things and it really works out really well and we like that, we want to continue that, like some things that Chrissy had talked about, what reading incentives that I'm sure they're going to mention. But then it also gives them another opportunity to be able to have, a listening feedback session for any areas that they may have concerns about or areas that they feel we can improve upon, of course, without mentioning personnel. And I'll start from the beginning because that would not be fair or appropriate to mention specific names of teachers or TAs or anything like that. So we're looking for, hopefully we have, a good turnout for that. The next big thing is, you probably saw it on the news, community forum regarding cell phones. So something definitely needs to be done, because at the end of the day, I want our teachers to understand that they are heard, they are supported. We understand that a student that is doing this under their desk, that is a disruption to them. I think we need the parents to hear how much it is, because there are a lot of parents that are also texting their kids. And I'll be honest, I did it. My kid's phone was in the locker, thank God. My kid yelled at me when he got on the bus. He said, Dad, I can't look at this. But what I was saying to him was that when we weren't going to be home, but the neighbors were aware, and again, he's 12 and he could have handled it, but I shot him off that text, right? He keeps it in his locker. If that situation where he didn't, and he didn't have it on vibrate or whatnot, he may want to look at it. We have some kids that say, Mom, I forgot my cleats. Now, this is a good kid, conscientious student. Oh, I know. You're right. You're like an Uber for your grandkids. So those are the things. So it's important that we have this community forum. I want students to be able to come to it. I had a great conversation with Matthew Stevens. He's such a great kid. So he used to be our student board rep. Do you remember Matt Stevens? He graduated in 2023. So he saw me on the news, and he's done a lot of work with this organization and at the college level called, I believe it's called Log Off or something like that. And so it's about devices, about how kids are addicted, and young adults are addicted to the instant communication and just scrolling through TikTok videos and whatnot. And so he had some really good insights that it is like addiction like anything else, and that he just remembers when he was in school, and he was in probably shouldn't say the name. He was in a class at the high school where the teacher had to constantly stop to tell the same 3 students to get off their cell phones, And so with that being said, I don't want it to look like we're not doing anything about it. We definitely need to, because if everything happens the way that it looks like it's playing out, I do believe for the 25-26 year, Governor Hochul is setting the stage for a statewide cell phone policy. And so I don't want teachers or parents to all of a sudden think, my kid needs it, they have anxiety, and they give a whole bunch of reasons why they need to have it. If we have it, we have it. And kids aren't going to be able to in classroom just to, take their phone out and whatnot. I also want some teachers there that say why they think we need it. Other teachers that say why they don't want to have it. 80-minute block. They work times in where after 40 minutes, they say you got 2 minutes. You can go to the bathroom. You can get a drink of water. If you've got to make a text, you can text. If you want to look up what the weather's gonna be like for your game, or answer your coach the remind about the practice, because a lot of them are from coaches, right? You can go ahead and do that and then focus. So it's not as easy as the media may make it sound like, well, yeah, just ban it. Because there are many unfunded mandates where on paper it looks like the right thing to do, but it would literally result in many more administrators needed to go through all of these referrals on a daily basis. And so you guys know, at the middle school, it's anywhere between 50 to 75 new referrals a day. At the high school, it's in the hundreds.
Not for cell phones.
No. We did have one teacher last year that wrote 36 in one day, and we don't have a cell phone thing. But But they're for a number of different things. And unfortunately, when all these appear, when you scroll in, you got to kind of cipher out, look at the drop-down menu. All right, this kid told the teacher to F off. Okay, that's going to trump if a kid takes a cell phone out. Another one could be student habitually comes 5 minutes late to class. We know that they're in school. What are they doing? They're hiding in the bathrooms. Some of them could be drugs. Some could be vaping. Some could be perceived bullying, sexual harassment. These are things that take a tremendous amount of time. Every DASSA report is a solid amount of time in a timely manner. So we need to look at that and we need to say, okay, if this ban were to come down even from, the governor, what is this going to look like? Because I want this said in public space. I take, and Pearl, correct me if I'm wrong, we take anywhere from 30 to 40 phone calls a week from parents in the community, that a growing number, I wouldn't say this if it was 5, 10, 15, 20, but no, a lot of parents that think that there's this notion that many teachers are indoctrinating students to a more liberal mindset. This is a very conservative environment. It's not wrong for me to say that it's in the 90 percentile of people that live in a rural area in Central Square are going to be conservative and more Republican. You saw that when people put yard signs out. So there are some people, and they'll call me and they'll say, Tom, or Mr. Calbufo, is the stuff that we see on the news of these kids videotaping their teachers, is that stuff going here? And I can say, here's the deal. We have Board Policy 6430 that prevents any teacher, whether it's far left or far right. Have we had situations where a teacher is just showing CNN? Yes, and we've had to address that. If we had a teacher that was just showing Fox and Friends, we would say the same thing. If we had a teacher that was just if it looked like the Republican National Headquarters with just bobbleheads, bumper stickers, we'd have to address that. Have we had to address? We haven't had to address that yet, but we've had to address the other situation where it does look like the Democratic headquarters. So for those conversations, and I have very lengthy conversations, a lot of them, they want to come in and meet with me, and we have those conversations because I can say to them, I have a chart and it shows thousands of 5-minute walkthroughs that our administrators that do throughout the year. They're always in classrooms. I recognize, all of us recognize that cell phones are a distraction for those kids that are doing this. I would love for every parent to say, you know what? We're just going to have our kids keep them at home. And some parents do. And if Heidi Sweeney was here, she would say, there are, Jess is here. She's at the high school. She can tell you there are some parents that they have a deal that it was the parent's idea, that the kid comes in and they just can't resist. They come in, they use it on the bus, it calms them down, then they give it to somewhere. You guys keep it. You, okay, yeah, you. And then they come and get it at the end. So it's self-monitored by the student. We don't have a policy to do that, and that works. But I think it's really important that parents understand that this could shift, and then the focus of my administrators won't be able to be in the rooms nearly as much as they are. So we have to talk about the priorities. But with that being said, from everything I keep reading about Hochul, this is probably going to happen. And so if it does, and we're required to do it, I don't want to be like the school districts right now that are on the news saying, oh, we have this cell phone policy and it's working, our grades are going up, when I have people I know very close to that teach in those schools and they're absolutely not enforcing it. There was a school in our county, I won't mention the name, they have a cell phone, you ask the superintendent, I think it's going well, and in fairness, superintendents can't know everything, they're not in the buildings, we're just fortunate that our district office is in a building. But if you actually, we got, from CIC that they share, and this specific principal said, it started strong, but then we just got very lax on it. If we have a board policy, I will make sure that the teachers are enforcing that board policy. If they're not enforcing the board policy, then I hate that part, especially if they already have great classroom management and they've got how they're doing it. There's going to be no more breaks where you say, okay, now you can be on your cell phones. If the policy is the policy and we will enforce the policy, I just really want to welcome this forum. I hope people come to it because there are many people on both sides of the argument that make great points. I just want them to be able to come. So I talked to Mrs. Shantz. She's going to have student government. Mateo, I'd love for you to help organize that too, the student part of it, to make sure that the student body's here, that they're heard, that teachers, that they're heard on both sides, and that administrators are heard, because on everything that they're tasked to. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the data, which is super important, and principals are in the rooms, and they're making sure that those data meetings are happening with the staff. And there will be some focus shifted to be able to make this policy happen. Everyone needs to be aware of that. So that's there. The other electric bus mandate this is a huge thing for the board. So what they're talking about doing is, I'm hearing whispers, and we're probably going to hear a lot about it in New York City at school boards, but what I'm hearing is that they may extend the deadline where it says you cannot purchase any diesel buses after 2027. They might extend that a couple of years, but what they're not changing is that our whole fleet would have to be fully zero emissions by 2035. Well, if anybody looks at this, that's fine if your fleet's 15 buses like some small districts, but when you have 100 buses, if we don't stay to that timeline of the 100,000 ones and then getting them off the road, this isn't something that they can just say, okay, now you have 5 years to do it. There is no way that we would be able to pull something off. So my worry is, I have not seen any districts that had a separate proposition that passed. So we had, on the North Shore in Constantia, our budget only passed by 1 vote. We went 2 straight years without raising taxes. It passed tremendously on the other polling locations of our district. So I need to be able to make sure, I want to do more of these forums. I want to be able to go and have and answer any questions that they have and whatnot. But I want to be able to have these opportunities where community members, parents come in, voice any concerns. I don't want to just wait until it's budget season and then all of a sudden, because here's the deal. We do great presentations. Our people sitting at the table are amazing. Ted's amazing now. He's joined our crew. But if you look around, besides the board member's child and our staff members, we don't really have people come to these, and we don't really have people that zoom in to watch them. So I need to try to figure out, like we're talking about reading, like, okay, you all know this. I need to be able to get that connection, and that's that goal 4 of the board goals, that I just gotta be creative. I gotta find ways to be able to do this.
Parents are busy running their kids here, there, everywhere.
When-
They
when-
don't wanna come and sit at a board meeting. If it's not broke, they're not gonna come. If they've got a complaint, they'll be here.
But when they pass a budget on that side of the town by 1 vote, they're making a statement. And again, albeit, that was only 136, 135 out of the 30,000 people that are eligible to vote out there. So I get that. I just need to make sure, to your point, that's true. So if we can do these kind of pop-up sessions, I used to do them before school at 6:30, nobody came. I did it after school if they wanted to come after work. Randy would come, we would have some donuts that I would bring for everybody.
Coffee.
But if the board members know and say, hey, that's why I want to do this tomorrow here in this room at 6 p.m., because, well, we only have 4 parents that are on that committee. I want people to say, this is what we're looking for in the next leader. These are some of the activities that we would like, whether they want to talk about the playground or whether they want to talk about they want the kids to go outside when it's snowing, it's snowy, but it's sunny outside. As a district, we don't do that. And she's saying there's a growing number of parents that want the kids to have the opportunity. It is good. My kid brings snow boots, but again, it's personal accountability that if the parent sends the kid and the kid gets off the bus, they don't have a jacket on, they don't have boots with them, that's a kid that it's kind of hard even to say stay on the blacktop. You didn't bring a jacket. And we know they have a jacket because the family's in need. I mean, AA Cole, all of our buildings, but I know for a fact, AA Cole, they know the families that are struggling, and they go out of their way, and there's so many people in AA Cole families that have a lot, that quietly donate stuff to people that don't. So it's not that they don't have a jacket. Where is it? In the boots. And then all of a sudden that kid's sad because he can't go out. But I'm tired of diminishing opportunities for others because we say, well, some families, they forgot. No, that kid should still be able to go out there because their family did remember to bring it. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, there's things that I have to be careful of. This is my 9th year as superintendent. I'm always working. People can get a hold of me, and my people at that table as well. I'm tired of excuses, and I don't want some kids to miss out on opportunities because they're like, well, if everybody can't do it, then it's not fair. I'm done with that mentality.
And there's mediocrity too, Tom. You know, Central Square is
It's not anymore, and we have so many families, including a very prominent journalist who lives in North Syracuse. They're paying tuition now. Every day we have another family from North Syracuse that's paying tuition to come to Central Square. I just gave a tour to today. So this is gonna be, Micron's gonna come here. People are gonna pick where do we want to live. I want to be able to pull the biggest amount of aid based on the number of students we have, and then that just means more opportunities here. So. Thus concludes my superintendent report.
Did you have a date for that forum?
For which one? For the cell phone?
one?
No, only because
Or a
I
thought of
told
when
Jen
they're-
Shantz, I want the students who are on vacations right now, I want to meet with them and you on the first week of school, let you guys settle
So it'll
in.
be after September then?
After the 1st of September, it'll be in the
After
month of
school.
September, yes. Because I want to first meet with them, bounce my ideas
Well,
off.
and I just know with my daughter, I think the biggest thing that they really need to push is if we're going to push the education, like with the Micron and everything, medical is huge. My daughter is not even allowed on the floor with a cell phone.
Well,
And I
and
think that's something that they really need to let them know. Like, you can't even go into the doctor's office
Right.
as a nurse with your cell phone on the floor.
Right.
Well, and that's been one of the things, as we've kind of talked about it in small groups and small
Well,
pockets.
where it makes, like part of your
It's,
job is.
we're preparing them for the world they're gonna go into, and
But
so
and
they're
if
not
we
gonna
let
be able to
them-
have free
If we let them walk
access.
around thinking they can
No,
do this all day long.
they're never gonna
and
be
then
able to
they're-
do that. And that's the thing, and that's when, in terms of you're talking, I know Hochul's using the word ban. I don't know that they could ever really
preparing
enforce a
more,
ban, right?
yes.
And so I don't want parents to panic and think, my kid can't bring their phone to school. I think more of, what the conversations I've heard and the conversations I've had with the teachers, it's more just accountability and responsibility of the students, that if a teacher tells you to put your phone away, you put your phone away. And
Correct.
so if you don't follow
that's-
that, it's not going to the office because you had your cell phone out, it's because you didn't follow the teacher's
Correct.
direction.
And that's where I
So-
kind of went with Tom with saying, I think we need to educate
Yes.
the kids on cell phones versus ban. Like, teach them, like, you can use it at XYZ time, but you can.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I'm really, like, that's manageable.
Right.
I'm just, sometimes the state puts things out that are totally
Oh, cell
unfeasible.
phone.
I'm not saying what the state's
I'll
gonna be
just say
put out
this,
is
I
gonna
could
be
totally,
manageable.
I could totally see them saying, you either have to buy these lockers.
Right, and
or
people put 'em
buy
in a-
these pouches. Who sells those, right?
Right.
I'm becoming a
No,
conspiracy
just
theory
to-
myself. But those are the things where a kid comes in with a burner phone that doesn't work and hasn't worked, and it's probably a flip phone that their grandfather had, right? And they give that and say, yeah, put that in the pouch, right?
And I
then
got my other one right here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, just to
No.
give just another to the point of that though, I'm part of a huge support group network of parents of type 1 diabetic children, right? And one of the first things I did is I, said, hey, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but we all might want to start paying attention because about 85% of the children who are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes now have moved into continuous glucose meters. The
On their
phones-
phone, right?
On their phones.
Yeah.
But not only is it on their
It's a
phone for
medical
their meters,
requirement.
but that meter tells their insulin pumps how much to dispense, and then they can also manually override it to say how much to dispense. But then the other important component of that is that meter and the technology for it can alert myself, my husband, the coaches, the teacher, whomever we delineate, that this person should be notified that the child is either spiking fast, dropping low, whatever that might be. So it's a life-saving device. It's not even out of
Absolutely.
convenience.
And I think those exceptions and those circumstances, I think there's ways to,
But here's the issue, so Hochul does her mandate that we know will probably be all-encompassing, then our children,
I think it died.
yeah, I think so. Then our children who are required to kind of pull their phone out to see if they're safe, or they hear the alarm, they have to give insulin. Now, everybody in that classroom, right, because kids are cruel, they're going to say, well, why do you get to use your phone, and so on and so forth. So now they have to state, well, I have a medical need. It's really not fair to the kids.
So there are so many things they're going to have to shake out. And here's the deal. If she's doing it for the right reason, great. Or is she doing it to pander to teacher votes? Because at the end of the day, she's not asking any principals, she's not asking any superintendents that know that once a kid's removed from a classroom for not handing in their phone, that becomes an administrative nightmare. Because now I dealt with it at Oneida, and it was a constant stream of just cell phones. So it definitely needs to be talked about, because I think there are a whole bunch of parents that need to understand that it is a distraction and that they have the right to make their kids leave. They pay for this. Keep them at home. But also, with that being said, they need to understand all of the factors that are involved with this. But they also need to partner with us. And so if we call them and our teachers are calling them saying, hey, like anything else, if I called you because your kid constantly puts their head down, they're totally closing up, they're not paying attention, I need you to be able to have that conversation with your child, because if you want them to be successful, and we want them to be successful, the cell phone is a huge distraction. And I keep having to interrupt to keep saying this. If you know that's a problem, leave it at home. Unfortunately, we have a growing number of parents that will side with their kids and say, that's up to me as a parent. And so it's not lost on the fact that a teacher is tasked with a lot. They're looking at mental health, right? Because they see certain signs of kids that are withdrawn that we worry about, that we have to do a mental health check on. They're constantly looking at the data of their students and how they're performing on Regents exams, state tests at the elementary. But then also, realistically, they're now tasked to make sure that students don't take their phones out. So I think the forum is going to be good to really kind of be an eye-opener. I just really hope that parents come to it so that they can hear teachers say how much of a distraction it is. And because if they're asking their kid may say, oh my God, there's no problem at all, when their kid could be the one that's doing texting all the time. So I think it's important when we get the date, we'll blast it out there. And the media, remember, every time I blast something out, if you're ever wondering why the media is here, it's easy for anyone to sign up. So the media sign up for alerts for all school districts for the mass blast. So they know when something is going to be. And I'm sure they're going to be here. And you know what? In full transparency, that's fine, because it's an open setting, and I want people to know that we take this very seriously. And I don't want the teachers to think, oh, well, there's no cell phone policy. Chrissy brings up a great point. It may not be a ban that the policy is created Central Square-wise, but it would be just at least establishing something that we can work with so both sides can look at this and go, okay. Because at the end of the day, we're preparing kids for the next level. If we have some students that are addicted to this, like Matt Stevens said, he's like, there's no way you're going to be able to ban cell phones in classrooms. If you do, you've got to do the same for teachers, because they have the same issues. They have a kid that's sick, that's in another district. Mom, I forgot my cleats. Well, that could be the teacher. And so when you're a teacher, and all of a sudden you see a text come across that it's your kid, your heart stops for a second going, oh my God, is my kid okay? All right, kids, work on this for a second, and then they look. So we have to just have a realistic lens and what our expectations are. But I also agree, we can't just ignore it, right? It is something that we need to talk about. Thus concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, item H, can we?
We have to do it separate?
We got to do it separate, right?
Items for discussion and action, that's why they're not in consent. We do them separate, but it's totally up to you guys. However, if everybody agrees, then.
Well,
Well,
I'm
we'll-
just making a motion. I'll make a motion for each one. Is that what you mean by separate, or I got to do A too?
No, you can make a
Okay.
motion for all of them if
I'll
everyone
make-
agrees.
Well, I'll just make motion for each one.
Any discussion? That's my job, Christine. All those in favor? And then we'll move on to H2, approval of new course proposal. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll motion.
I do have a discussion on this.
The,
Well, when is this going to be available? Because I actually talked to somebody over the weekend that might be interested in taking this.
The book?
No.
No, the course.
Course.
Is this the teaching one, the internship? Yeah, right now. Like the kids that are signed up for the internship class, it's going to be dually enrolled. Like it's already available. That's why we allowed it to go through the process so much quicker and did it this summer. So this fall, they can take it.
This fall, they can take it.
So
All right.
so that was my clarification question. This course is a lot of the same, it's just a college course as opposed to a high school transcript course
Yeah,
now.
we just found
Okay.
out that like our teacher can be approved, and why not?
Why
It's all
not?
the
Why
same.
not?
We already
Right.
built this whole class, and we found out they can get college credit for it, so let them take it for college credit. So most of the kids are already signed up for it, but if you know someone, Steve, that hasn't
I
signed up,
do.
it is gonna go, we couldn't advertise because it's not board approved yet, but yeah.
Right. I said call tomorrow.
Yep.
I
Tomorrow
don't
morning.
anticipate it not going through tonight, but call tomorrow.
And that's something that, as a district, that the boards have talked about that for the longest time. What's not fair, when you have the dual credit courses, where you have somebody in there that the parent paid the $350, and then you had another kid sitting in that same course that they did not, so it's not college. We changed that. The majority of districts have changed that as well. So as we move forward, we are paying for that. So it's never going to be a situation where a kid can get an A and this kid paid the $350 and this kid didn't. So I don't know any districts that aren't doing that now. It's only fair. And that's part of our strengthening for our college pathway. We always talk about other pathways, but that's one pathway that we also need to strengthen, and it really shouldn't be based on the haves and have-nots. So that's something that we worked into our budget.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion passed. I will make the motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby move into executive session to discuss matters leading to the tenure of two particular people and matters leading to the employment of a staff member with no action to follow. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
All right, we go to the